This is a PodCo original.
Hey, Full House fans, it's me, Dave Coulier. I hope you're having fun catching up with more episodes on our Full House Rewind. My guest on this week's episode is Kelly Rizzo. She's the host of Eat, Travel, Rock, and we're going to talk about what it was like being married to Bob Saget. And we both talk about how we've been able to deal with the grief of losing Bob way too soon. If you haven't caught this episode yet, I think you're going to love it. We'll be back this fall with a lot more new episodes and a whole new look for the show. I can't wait for you to see it. And thank you for watching the show on our Full House Rewind YouTube channel and listening to wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great day. You did the second season of Special Forces on Fox, right? That looked insane.
And of course, I'm going through my head like, what would Bob say? Would he think this is insane? Would he support it?
Did you watch Full House before you met Bob or any of us? You have a great relationship with Bob's three daughters.
Yeah.
How is that? I know it's been really tough. We were all so happy when you came into Bob's life because he wasn't a happy camper. Welcome to episode 17 of Full House Rewind. I'm your host, Dave Coulier. And our guest today is none other than Kelly Rizzo. She's Bob Saget's wife, and she is one of the nicest, most genuine people I have ever met. You may know her from Eat, Travel, Rock, starring on Special Forces on Fox, and you can hear her podcast, Comfort Food with Kelly Rizzo. Here's an adorable picture of Kelly when Full House was on the air. Wow, look at that picture. How cute. Thank you so much for being here.
Dave, I can't even tell you how much this means to me. This is so fun. Thank you for having me.
It is so nice for you to be here on the show. And we're going to be talking about a ton of stuff. I have so many questions for you that I can't wait to dive into. But we're going to be talking about episode number 17 with you, also known as Danny's very first date. So episode 17 was directed by Joel Zwick and first aired on ABC on February 12th, 1988. And so, Kelly, you're going to give us a little rundown on what this episode is about.
All right. So Danny has not dated anyone since his wife's death 1 year ago, and he becomes interested in the hive mother of Stephanie's honeybee troop. When his kids find out he might date the woman, their negative response surprises him.
Ooh, if that doesn't pull you in, huh?
Oh, man.
Okay, yeah. Okay, now we're just going to describe what's happening in the episode together. So I'm going to start us off, okay? All right. Episode 17 opens in the living room where Stephanie and her group of honeybees have gathered for their honeybee honey drive. Joey, wearing a bee hat, is there to assist the hive mother, Linda, with today's meeting. DJ, a former honeybee, enters and gives the kids a pep talk about selling honey for the honeybee drive.
Okay, so then Jesse and Joey try to convince Danny to ask Stephanie's hive mother, Linda, out for a date, telling him that it's been a year since Pam has passed away and it would be okay. And Danny tells the guys that he hasn't been on a date since he took Pam to prom. And Danny, trying to impress Linda, buys 3 jars of honey from her daughter. DJ and Stephanie then talk Danny into buying 20 jars of honey. Now, Danny tries to awkwardly ask Linda out for a date, and Linda, seeing Danny's awkwardness, shocking, asks if he'd like to go out that night. And he agrees and tells Jesse and Joey how excited he is.
Well, then Danny tries to find a way to tell the girls that he's going on a date. So Joey and Jesse try to give Danny some advice as he heads upstairs to tell them. He tells the girls, and they're obviously upset. And Danny calls Linda and cancels the date, telling her that it's just too soon for him to start dating.
And then while Jesse and Joey try to build a playhouse for Michelle, they convince DJ and Stephanie that their dad is lonely and it would be best if he went on the date. DJ and Steph go upstairs and talk about whether their mom would be happy if their dad started dating.
Well, the girls go to Danny's room and ask if he still loves mom. He says that he's always going to love her and nothing will ever change that. Danny explains to the girls that mom would be happy if he started dating, saying that when they were married, they actually had a conversation about this scenario should it ever happen. Hearing this, the girls now have a better understanding and tell Danny that he should go on the date. And that is a touching full house right there. You are so busy. You have so many things going on, and I've got to be a little part of it watching you. And it's so good to see you always. I don't get to see you enough.
I know.
And my wife Melissa doesn't get to see you enough, but you just got to see her. I'm going to ask you stuff that I don't know about you because we've never had the luxury of time to be able to just sit and talk and, get to know each other even more. So I want to start at the beginning.
I'm very excited.
You're from Chicago, which is one of my favorite places in the world. So did you start Eat, Travel, Rock in Chicago? Was that something that you started there? And just kind of walk us through how that all started, because it was a web series, right?
Yeah.
Originally?
So, well, first, I love that we're both Midwesterners. It's maybe why we got along in the beginning. But yeah, so grew up in Chicago, lived there my whole life. And then I started Eat, Travel, Rock after a very long career in real estate, which a lot of people don't know and find kind of surprising. They're like, oh, because it's such a different career from what I'm doing now.
Certainly, yeah.
So, my family and I were in real estate forever. And I went through a divorce in like 2012 and was just so burnt out on real estate. I'm like, I need to reinvent myself. I want to do something totally different. And I'm like, what am I passionate about? What am I good at? What do I want to talk about? And I'm like, well, food, travel, music. And I literally went online and bought eattravelrock.com and then just started blogging. But I knew I wanted to be a little bit more interactive, have it be more on camera. So I started doing some more videos, interviewing musicians, a lot of country artists back in the day in Chicago, and just, a lot of like restaurant reviews and things like that. And then it just started progressing and building a bit more. And then I met Bob and then moved to LA to do it here in 2017.
So Eat, Travel, Rock. Now I know some bits and pieces of it. It took you all over everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, all over the planet, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of places I have not been. So where is a place where you found just to be so interesting? That was just like, not so much a culture shock from, being a Midwesterner in the United States, but someplace where you just went, wow, this is really cool.
It was Japan, and it was very cool on many levels because it was a culture shock, but it was also my first big international trip for Eat, Travel, Rock. And so the fact that it was kind of my dream to actually to go to Japan, but then to have it be a work trip and have it be paid for and then get paid to go do what I love to do in this country that I'd been dying to go to for years was kind of a pinch me moment of like, wow, this is actually working. This is actually happening. And it was so interesting because I went with my videographer at the time, Ethan, well, he's still my videographer, Ethan, and Ethan had never even left the US. And so we were going to places also in Japan that were very off the beaten path, places where Americans do not go and do not get to see, and where they've never even seen Americans, really. So it was a bit of a culture shock for me, even though I was pretty well traveled, but it was really a big one for him. And so it was so fun to see his reaction too. I mean, first time having sushi and first time eating all these crazy foods. So to this day, that was probably my favorite trip and a great learning experience, and also kind of the start of my international travels for my job.
It's interesting that you say Japan because Full House is part of their culture there.
Yeah.
They actually taught in their grade school programs, what a nuclear family looks like in America. So it became part of their curriculum. Then when we launched Fuller House, we had this huge thing in Japan, which was just insane.
I remember.
And my wife, Melissa, came with me. And she'd been to Japan a couple of times because her sister and brother-in-law lived there when he was stationed there. And we went off the beaten path like that. We got on the bullet train and went out to the countryside and went to some places like that. I found their culture, not just because we were big stars when we arrived there, I found their culture just extraordinary.
Yeah.
How neat Tokyo was. It was pristine. Like you didn't see a cigarette butt or a piece of gum on the sidewalk.
Well, you don't eat while you're walking there.
Crazy.
You eat in a designated location. Like there were not even garbage cans on the streets because there's no need for them because people don't throw things away while they're just walking around.
Here's another thing I found about Japan, which was really interesting. It was quiet. Here, Tokyo was quiet. It was a hustle bustle city, cars everywhere. And so you never heard a horn honk. And so Mel and I were there for about 3 days and we were walking somewhere. And I think it was like to the Emperor's Palace. And we're just walking, and all of a sudden we heard a horn honk. And I said to her, I said, somebody must have really done something wrong for someone to honk their horn.
Yeah.
But
the manners are just next level.
Yes, it was so beautiful. And, they have these cemeteries right in the city. And, they really, the relatives go there and they visit and they have these poems on these wooden sticks there that describe the person's life. And you can go and place these wooden sticks. It was just, it was a beautiful culture moment. And I was so happy to be immersed in that. Is there any place that you've traveled to where you could say, I could live here?
Well, first, let me just say one more thing about Japan was that trip that you guys went on, Bob wanted to take me, but he's like, I'm only going to be there. He wasn't even there 2 full days. I think he was there 36 hours.
Yeah, because he didn't stay. He came in for the big shebang there.
Right. And he said, it's not worth it for you to come for 36 hours.
Right.
And to this day, he had always said, because I really wanted to take him back so he could really experience it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've been to Japan. I'm like, you did not go to Japan.
I wish you would have been on that trip.
You were there for 36 hours.
Yeah.
I said, we have to go back and you need to really, really see it. And, obviously I'm sad we never got a chance to go, but that was definitely our next kind of bucket list trip that we were going to do because he didn't really get a chance to experience it as much as you did because you had a few more days there.
Yeah. The fish market, we went to they have like a tuna auction in the fish market.
I still haven't done that.
So we went at like 4 a.m.
Oh, yeah, you gotta go early.
And it was just crazy. People eating sushi at 5 a.m. and waiting in line to go into like a 6-seat sushi bar was just incredible.
It's never a bad time for sushi.
That's true. That is true. That's true. Maybe that's my comfort food.
Okay.
Maybe sushi is my comfort food.
I'll get a sugar fish.
For your for your podcast, maybe, because you asked me, what's your comfort food? And I thought, it's either pizza or sushi, but now that all this talk about Japan, it's got me thinking about.
All right, we'll switch it up. Let's see, where could I live?
Yeah.
Well, so Italy is probably my favorite country in terms of, that's where my family's from. So I love it there very much. And I love the culture and the food, of course. And I do have a lot of family there. But I think in terms of actual livability of somewhere, I speak Italian, but not perfectly fluently. And that would be too much of a stress to live somewhere where you don't totally speak the language. So I think London. If I had to live anywhere, I'd pick London. I love London. Everybody says, that when you go to London, the food isn't very good. I found it to be really good.
Yeah. Much adverse to what I heard. So years ago, I did a show on Fox called Skating with Celebrities. Okay. And it was a figure skating competition show. And I skated. My partner was Nancy Kerrigan.
This makes sense for you,
I'm not a figure skater. I'm an ice hockey player, and it's a different type of skate, different blade. And
what was that movie? Cutting Edge?
Cutting Edge, yes. Yeah.
They did it. He went from hockey to figure skating.
Toe pick. Toe pick. Yeah. But it was an ice skating competition show. I think I lost close to 20 pounds. I was in ripped shape, but skating every day. And I thought, man, this is probably the toughest thing I have ever done because it was a lot of training. It pales in comparison to the show that you did. You did the second season of Special Forces on Fox, right? Mm-hmm. That looked insane.
Were you so proud of me?
I was so proud of you. I was, it looked like you're training to become a Navy SEAL. It was the real deal. Yeah. And I watched and I just, you could feel the pain. I was like in pain watching you on this show.
It was no joke.
Can you just take us through that show, why you did it, how they found you, and take us through that whole process?
Yeah. So a little bit of background. I'd always been kind of obsessed with the movie G.I. Jane. And I always thought if I ever had a
Demi
chance
Moore.
to,
Yeah.
if I ever had a chance to do something like that, you take that chance, you take that opportunity because just to be able to work alongside some of these incredible military personnel, people who have fought for our country, not just ours, but this was British Special Forces as well. I'm like, these are amazing people who have done incredible things, and I want to be trained by them. I want to work with them.
Right.
And when my agent brought it up, and because she had another client who had done the first season, she's like, I think you'd be really good on this. I think you should do this. And at first I was like, that's crazy. And of course, I'm going through my head, like, what would Bob say? Would he think this is insane? Would he support it? And then I came to the conclusion that he would think it was insane, but he would ultimately support it. Like, well, if that's what you want to do, I guess that's what you want to do. So it was in New Zealand, and last summer, which was winter in New Zealand. And at first my agent told me, oh, you're going to Australia. And I thought, oh, Australia, it's good weather. Even if it's kind of in the winter there, it's still good weather. And then I found out, no, it's New Zealand, and the southern part of New Zealand, which was very cold. I mean, snow.
Yeah.
Very,
I saw
very,
that on the
very much
show.
winter.
I saw that, yeah.
It was, I fortunately was able to get there a week before filming started. So I was able to acclimate to the weather, to the time zone. I wasn't jet lagged anymore, where some people who were my fellow recruits showed up like the day before, which I can't even imagine. I was so happy I had about 8 days to adjust. And it was 14 of us started out sleeping in a military bunkhouse on military cots with no really blankets or pillows. We had a tiny little travel pillow that was this big. We had 0 toiletries. We were allowed a toothbrush and toothpaste and toilet paper, and then any medication, like prescription medication. That was it. No shampoo, no conditioner, no brush.
So it was a
nothing.
stinky show. It was a stinky show.
It could have been, but we had so many layers of clothing on that you couldn't
It couldn't escape.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So, the restrooms were outdoors. It was just like a bucket in the ground with like plywood stalls. And there was no designation between like men or women. It's like everyone, and you had to go with a buddy. So they implemented the military buddy system.
Right.
So even going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, if you had to go, which, people, let's say over 30, over 40, and it happens.
Me.
Right, exactly. And so I'd have to wake somebody up. Usually it was JoJo Siwa or like Tom Sandoval or something. Be like, will you come to the bathroom with me? Like in the middle of the night. And it was no joke. It was very, very real. There was no, when the cameras stopped rolling, oh, here's craft services. It's like you ate what they gave you when they gave it to you. And if you didn't eat, like you didn't eat that day.
It was the real thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't produced for television.
Oh, no. We didn't see a producer or anybody the entire show. We were only interacting with the DS, the directing staff, which were former Navy SEALs and British Special Forces.
And those are tough cookies.
Yeah. We've become friends with them since, but during the show, they are not friendly and they are not on your side.
Because the dropout rate or whatever you call it for Navy SEALs is super high.
Yeah, like 99% or something.
Yeah, like no one makes it through.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be tough as nails. I want to switch gears a little bit. Did you watch Full House before you met Bob or any of us? Was it a show that you watched?
Of course. So I was I would say slightly more than the occasional watch. Like maybe I hadn't seen every single episode. Maybe I'd seen like 75% of the episodes.
Right.
So I was from maybe season 3 on, I started watching it very regularly.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't until later that even after I started dating Bob that I'd go back and like watch a couple more here and there. So I'm sure at this point I've seen them all. But
because I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't. I'm doing this show is me watching these episodes.
Yeah. Bob hadn't either. And he would sometimes like catch me watching an episode. He's like, you're not watching Full House, are you? I'm like, no. But yeah, so I was, let's say, not a super fan. Like my sisters were super fans. Like they were a little bit more in that age demo
I met your
where by the
sisters.
time I was in high school, I was maybe, I was more maybe into Beavis and Butthead at that time.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But
great show.
But I always loved it. I mean, who didn't?
Yeah. I didn't know your sisters watched Full House.
Oh, yeah.
I never got that from them. They were just so cool and chill and relaxed. And what did Bob ever tell you? He must have told you a ton of stories about Full House, like stuff that happened over the years. Any of them stick out? Like, I mean, we have so many stories, but I'm trying to think if he told you anything like, this happened or that happened where you just thought, oh, that's very uncharacteristic of what I would have thought happened behind the scenes.
Well, it was...
Because you do get like one picture of us on camera and then you meet us and we're crazy.
Well, yes. I loved finding out about the relationship that you and Bob had, which preceded Full House, which a lot of people probably didn't know or don't know, that you guys had known each other since, I mean, you were a teenager and he was like 20, 21?
I was 18, yeah.
Yeah. And when he would tell me the stories of you guys even before Full House, when he was just starting out in LA and you would come and stay with him, I was always like, wait, like I couldn't grasp the concept of that you guys knew each other before and then what that must have been like to have found out that you both got
it was insane.
This part. And that you're like, crazy. Wait, we're already friends and now we get to work together in this capacity.
Yeah.
It was just so cool to me. And I always loved how he would, kind of recollect even days with you prior to Full House.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we got to struggle together and we got to be successful together, so it was, we were so tight as far as the comedy world and how tiny that comedy world is. Even more so, it was like me and Bob and Gary Shandling. The three of us were thick as thieves, and we would just try and out funny each other. But I just wondered, I'm sure he told you so many stories of things that happened. And I was just wondering, when I was thinking about you coming on the show, I thought, I wonder what Kelly's perspective was and how it got changed by, kind of seeing behind the curtain,
Yeah. And then the other thing is that he was always very open about is that even in the beginning, he and John didn't hit it off like from the very beginning. And then of course, later on, they did. And then post show, you guys were all best friends.
Yeah.
And it was so real, the friendship. But to hear the stories of, he'd be like, well, John thought he was so cool because he was a soap opera star and he would come on and
I was in the middle of those two, because John would have his stuff about Bob and Bob would have his stuff about John. And I was just like, you two just go work it out somewhere. Okay. Because I was Switzerland.
Yeah.
I was always like, hey, John, it's cool. Just stop. And Bob, you stop, but yeah, I was in the middle of those two. They were catfighting for years.
And what I talked to John about recently too, especially since his book came out, which was very enlightening and so many things, was that John had said that even though, he was younger and he was out and, dating all these people and stuff, that he was always jealous of Bob having a family and being a family man.
Yeah.
Where it was a little bit also the opposite, where Bob was a little bit jealous of John, that he was this like cool guy and got to do all these cool things.
Yeah.
And so they had this kind of mutual jealousy for each other.
Oh boy, don't I know it. Yeah.
Obviously was pretty much resolved, I guess, down the road.
Oh, they loved each other.
Yeah,
we were three brothers. We were really brothers and we fought like brothers and, we told each other the truth. And a lot of times, no one wanted to hear that, but we did it for each other. And it was like real brothers, because there were times where we would be laughing so hard and enjoying each other's company so much, just thinking, wow, this is my best friend in the world. And then there are other times where it was like, if you don't get away from me right now, I'm going to punch you in the throat.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I remember when we even first started dating, he would, constantly, Bob was on his phone a lot and he would always be.
You think?
Yeah. And his texts would be a little bit verbose and a little bit long and lengthy.
Yeah.
And they would always end with, oh, by the way, it's Bob.
Yeah.
But he would have these group chats, and he would show me, and it would be all of you, literally all of you guys on one group chat. And he'd be like, look, Full House is real. Like, we all love each other. Like, we're a real family. Like, we're still talking. Because, let's say I watched Full House in the 90s or late 80s, but then, I hadn't really, it was gone for 20 plus years, whatever. I hadn't really thought about it. And then to be kind of thrown back into this world when I started dating him, being like, oh my God, like the Full House cast from the night, like they're all still best friends and still love each other. Like it was a very surreal thing for me. And then I remember it was season 2 of Fuller House when you guys all went, and I went with you for the day to San Francisco to film the intro.
Right.
And it was really one of the, Bob and I had only been dating maybe 6 months or something like that. And so it was really one of the first times that I really got to spend a lot of time with you and with John and like the rest of the cast. And just to see your dynamic off screen and to really learn more about you guys as, as friends and family was so funny. And I remember we were on like some bus together and on the plane on the way there, which was hilarious. Bob was like taking the PA speaker and making like the pilot announcements to people.
Yes, he was. That was hysterical.
But you were being so funny. I don't even remember exactly what it was. I think I have a video of it somewhere. But you were being so funny. And Bob just kept saying to me, he's like, you don't understand. Dave is the funniest person on the planet. Dave is the funniest person I've ever met. And I remember getting to see it firsthand finally, because I would hear stories from him.
Yeah, the unscripted stuff is always the funniest stuff,
But those were some fun memories of, of when we all went to San Francisco. And I'm like, I can't, it was a very surreal moment to be like, how am I all of a sudden integrated into this family of like this show that I watched when I was a kid? It was very interesting and very cool.
Well, I wanted to have you on this episode, talk about kind of surreal, and it was, as I was watching this episode, I thought to myself, it kind of mirrors Bob's life in a weird kind of way, this Full House episode. Mm-hmm. Bob loved Candace and Jody and Mary Kate and Ashley, like they were his own daughters. I mean, he really adored them, and they adored him like a fatherly figure, And in this episode, Danny talks with his 3 daughters about how he's going to move forward, and you have a great relationship with Bob's 3 daughters. Yeah. How are all of you moving forward? How is that? I know it's been really tough for everyone, but it's so great that you have that relationship with Lara and Aubrey and Jenny. How have you guys, and you guys have really bonded through all of this. It's really incredible, Kelly.
It's so special. And it's the thing in life at this moment that I'm the most grateful for, to have them. I mean, you've known them since before they were born, but they are angels, absolute angels on this earth. And I could not be more grateful for them. And it was very interesting reading this and going through this episode. It really did have a lot of parallels because, that's been something that his girls and I since day one have stuck together. And everything I've done since Bob passed has been, whether it's something so simple, something about even like when I had to move and choosing my house, going on special forces. Anything I've done, I've wanted to make sure that his girls were okay with it and get their blessing for everything.
Yeah.
And they've just been so supportive of me, so supportive of, just me living life and wanting to see me happy. So and like even the same thing about like dating, like going to them and asking them, like 18 months after something, being like, maybe one day, like, if that happens, could I have your blessing? And they're like, Kelly, we want you to be happy. And I'm like, really? Because I feel like your dad would not be okay with this. And they're like, and I've really had to make that distinction between earthly Bob, what earthly Bob would be okay with, and and you as, his best friend of 40 plus years, it's the same thing. Like you really understand the distinction between earthly Bob and making those jokes and how he was very sensitive and could be jealous and things like that, to what heavenly Bob would want. And,
right. The mothership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And his girls really helped put that in perspective for me. Like this, he would want you to be happy. Like, this is how you move forward. This is like, and we all do it together. I mean, Aubrey and Laura, when they come to LA, like they'll stay with me. Like they stay at my house, and
it's wonderful.
It's so special. And it makes, as horrific and hard and sad and devastating as losing Bob was, having them as a part of him makes things tolerable and makes things a lot easier. And it's this added blessing that we were close before, but now
we love
so
those
close.
girls, meaning me and Melissa, my wife. We love those girls, and they are three angels. They are just three of the most magnificent spirits. And, we were all so happy when you came into Bob's life, because he wasn't a happy camper. He really wasn't. And I mean, you were the perfect person for him. And you were always just kind of the right amount of calm and composure to kind of balance Bob's frenetic pace, because he was, he
was a little tough. He wasn't always the easiest.
Yeah. So, I mean, I probably haven't said it enough, but thank you for being that presence in my friend's life, because it was so wonderful to be a part of that and to see my friend so happy. And you gave that to him. So thank you.
Well, that means everything coming from you, coming from the people who loved him most. And he had told me, he would say all the time, he's like, if you would have met me 10 years ago, you would have, he's like, you think I'm difficult now? I was really difficult back then. And he, as, unique of a character as he was, that's what made him so special. And that's what made him so wonderful and, beautiful of a human, is because he was so complex and so different.
Yeah, but he had a way of holding us all together.
Yeah.
And I think, when we didn't have that anymore, we were kind of like wandering around aimlessly. Like, there are bits that I only did with Bob where I will be driving around in my truck and I'll think of something and I'll go, and I'm like, oh my God, I would make Bob laugh so hard right now with this abstract, weird.
Oh, he would tell me some of them. Yeah.
Oh, I know. It was just, we were
you had funny voices and characters and things that you would do
just
together.
With him, and it's like I lost it's like losing my right comedy arm,
But there's such a strong pull to this day, I whether it's hearing the little voice in your head or something where, what would Bob do? WWBD. Like I have that in my head all the time is, still a guiding force, a guiding presence because he was so strong in his ways and in his thoughts. And you always knew what he would do in a certain situation or what he would say. And never, as it's funny, I had this talk very recently on my podcast with John Mayer of saying, there's always like a Bob joke also, but we know that we could never land it the way Bob would. So like, don't even bother saying it.
Right.
But even his jokes, I can still hear. I could hear where he would make them. I don't know exactly what he would say, but I could hear where he would make them and the gist of what he would say.
Yeah.
I don't dare try to do it, but it's nice to know that, as you said, he was kind of the glue that held everybody together. In a sense, he still does. Yeah,
and I talked about it with me and John and Andrea and Candace and Jody. We all did an Instagram Live and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that was so wonderful.
It was wonderful, but what we came to the conclusion of was we get to talk about this for the rest of our lives now.
Yeah.
And that was like the greatest gift you can get from someone, is celebrating their life in a funny way, the rest of your life,
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about your podcast? Because
Please.
It sounds like we both need some comfort food at this point.
Please.
I'm going to be a guest on your podcast.
I know, but this is great timing.
And, again, it's called Comfort Food, and it's the perfect title of a show I think, for you to host.
Thank you.
Can you just tell us what the show's about?
Yeah. So, I'd never really been through a profound loss in my life until Bob. And I was very not well versed in the grief world.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a crash course in it and got, hit by it with by a ton of bricks, and learned a lot. And I did learn, and as you know this world very, very well as well, that it's not a topic that people really like talking about because it's sad and a bummer. And it's still a little taboo. People don't always know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They don't know if they should talk about it. It's just kind of a topic people don't like to touch.
Right.
And
it's uncomfortable.
Right.
For a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been uncomfortable not to talk about it. Like I always, because maybe it's specific to Bob and that he's such a big presence and everyone loves talking about Bob, it's made me always want to keep talking about Bob, and I'll always want to talk about Bob. So this whole situation and losing him just kind of made me very aware of there are a lot of conversations to be had, but how can I make these conversations a little bit more palatable, a little bit easier, a little bit more comfortable for people, and not have it be such a bummer. It's not like a grief podcast.
Right.
It's let's bring in my guest's favorite comfort food and have these chats that a lot of times end up being pretty funny.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of comedians on too, which makes these topics, it brings a little bit more levity to them. And we talk while eating my guest's favorite comfort food. So we talk about these hard times, but in a way that makes the guest comfortable and then ideally helps the listener because it maybe gives them some advice on how to handle whether they themselves are grieving and lost somebody, or whether they have a friend who lost somebody. How can they help their friend? So that's really the point.
And I'm going to tie it all together why it makes so much sense for me, because I have always explained to people when they ask, why was Full House so successful? And I said, because it was video comfort food.
Yeah.
And, and then I started thinking, and then I learned the name of your podcast. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And then I realized Bob was kind of my video comfort. He was my comfort food because together we lost 3 sisters. We went through a lot of tough stuff, losing people. And he just kind of got it. He just kind of understood and was the first one to kind of wrap his arms around it. And, whether it was an audio hug with a message or a text, or just, you were there with him. He was my comfort food in a lot of ways, going through that dark stuff, So I'm so happy once I learned what your podcast was. I was like, wow, that's really great, because we don't often talk about it. Bob and I, it was gallows humor.
Right.
It was dark stuff where we joked our way out of it.
Right. Well, he was such a grief professional because he had lost so many people. And that's why he would always tell me, one day when you lose your parents or when you lose somebody, like, I'm going to be there for you and I'm going to help you get through this because I'm the guy. Like, I know what to do. And then to lose him and then not have that support for my future losses one day, I'm like, all right, I feel really lost, but how can I then at least use this for good to bring in a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different advice to then help other people. So,
well, I'm so glad that you're part of our family, because it was just kind of seamless, you becoming part of our world. And I know you're very close to your family. Would you ever move back to Chicago, do you think? Do you ever, or would you stay here in LA? I mean, because I moved back. I said never, and I moved back to Michigan. Yeah. So, I mean, would you ever?
Well,
never
here's what I've learned, right? Dave. You can't plan life.
Right. That's
life
true.
Does not go according to plan. As of now, after Bob passed, I kind of assumed that that's what I would be doing because I'm like, well, my whole family's there.
Right.
But then my family was very adamant, even my parents who would love to have me there. They're like, no, you have to stay in LA. That's where your friends are. That's where Bob's friends are.
Right.
That's your home now. And we think that that's best for you. And I agreed. So as of now, LA is my home. Maybe one day,
Yeah.
We'll see. But I'm just so grateful from day one, you guys accepted me with open arms into your family. And I know that even though Bob isn't here, it's been so wonderful to have you guys as support. And I know that that will never end. And I'm just so honored and grateful to be a part of the Full House family. So thank you for having me.
Forever, yes. And, in the spirit of Bob, would you like to play a little game now?
Oh my gosh.
All right, it's time to goof around a little bit.
Okay.
All right. So this is a game called Which Daughter Said It? Okay. So on episode 17, Danny talks to the three girls about their mom. Okay. So we're going to take a line from the girls and see if you can match it to their character. Okay. So no matter how you answer these, you're still going to probably win a prize.
Okay.
All right. So it doesn't.
Lucky me.
Yes, because everybody's a winner here at Full House Rewind. Okay. Who said that seat? This is question one. Who said that seat was made for my tushy? Was it DJ, Stephanie, or Michelle?
I mean, it sounds like a Michelle thing, but I'm thinking season 1, episode 17. Was she old enough to say that?
Ooh, that's pretty good insight.
Right?
So was it DJ, Stephanie, or Michelle who said that seat was made for my tushy?
I'm going to go with Michelle.
It was Stephanie.
Oh.
It was Stephanie. It was about she had a little bike, and the honeybees had. If you sold the most honey, you won the bike.
Okay, yeah. Michelle wasn't old enough to talk yet. I don't think.
Yes. Okay. Question 2. Who goes? But you're doing great.
I don't know. I'm 0 for 1, but okay.
All right. Question 2. Who said jars of honey make wonderful birthday gifts, and your purchase is tax deductible? Talk about a honey of a deal.
I think that would be DJ because
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah,
yes.
Because she was the previous honeybee.
That's right. Right.
See,
okay.
I remember.
Somebody's paying attention here. Okay, question number 3. Who said...
Well, Michelle.
Yes. You're a winner. Everyone's a winner here at Full House Rewind. So let me
2 out of 3.
Yes, you are not going away without prizes. Here's
I'm
a
so
cut-it-out
excited.
hat and a cut-it-out... wait, that's a Mr. you know what? That's a Mr. Woodchuck.
You know how much Bob loved Mr. Woodchuck.
He did not like Mr. Woodchuck. So you get that.
He loved Mr. Woodchuck.
Woodchuck. And you get a cut-it-out shirt of Mr. Woodchuck and a cut-it-out hat.
Oh my gosh, I'm very excited.
So we get to do one more thing before we say goodbye because it's time for Cut It Out. Cut It Out. Every episode of Full House, of course, had the heartfelt scene. And we've cut out a little scene here from episode 17, and we're going to read it together, you and I.
Okay. This is so exciting.
I always play the role of Danny. So, and you're going to be playing the role of DJ and Stephanie. Okay.
I'll try to switch up my voice. We'll see.
Here we go. Danny and the girls are sitting in his bed. Okay. And Danny says, "Okay, girls, what's wrong?"
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. No, it's not. DJ was wondering if you still love Mom.
Well, of course I still love Mom. She was the first love of my life. Together we made 3 little miracles. I'm always going to love her. Nothing will change that. Not a date, not even if I fall in love with someone else one day.
Well, how do you think Mom would feel about that?
I know exactly how she would feel.
You do? How?
Well, moms and dads talk about all kinds of things. And one night we had a long talk about what we would do if something ever happened to one of us. And we talked about making sure you were all taken care of. And we agreed that if either one of us ever became single again, we should try to meet someone else to share our life with.
So Mom would be happy if you went on a date?
I think she would be. She would know that I'm not looking for someone to take her place, just to make a new friend. I could never forget Mom. I think about her every time I look at you, and you, and you.
Well, maybe we could take you out for ice cream another night. We already had 2 bowls anyway. Go on your date, Dad.
Oh, that's very sweet, but I don't think I can call Julie's mom again. I already broke our date twice.
I'll call her.
DJ, you don't have to do that. Okay, it's 555-8713. And the scene ends, and that always brings a tear to everyone's eye. Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Dave,
You're
thank
so
you.
lovely. I can't wait to do your podcast, Comfort Food, and I get to see you again and spend some more time with you. Everybody, thanks to Kelly Rizzo for being here on Full House Rewind. Big applause. Unbelievable. We'll be right back. Here's some of my thoughts about episode 17. Seeing Bob in this episode talk with his 3 daughters about death and starting his life over was, to say the least, very emotional for me. In fact, I cried. It just brought back so many memories of the Bob Saget I knew and his 3 real-life daughters, Aubrey, Laura, and Jenny. Except the twist in this episode is that their TV mother dies, not Bob. So seeing Bob speak to the 3 girls about death was heart-wrenching, and not having ever seen this episode, I was blindsided by emotion. So here was my friend and co-star talking to his girls about a parent who had passed away. It was art doing a weird imitation of life. It also helps me understand why Full House fans have such deep affection for our show. We talked about the tough times in life, hurdles that we all face, and then we'd make you laugh and tell each other how much we loved one another. This episode was pretty cathartic for me, made me remember something that we so easily forget. Don't miss an opportunity to tell the people you care about that you love them. And I love you, Bob, and the whole cast and crew, and you, all the fans. I want you to know how grateful I am to feel the love and support I get from Full House fans, and I'd like nothing more than to return the favor. We'd love to hear your thoughts about Full House, so tell us about your favorite episode or just why you love the show so much. Or maybe you got a question for me, so just send us an email with the link at socials@podco.us. We close every episode of Full House Rewind by giving all of you who need it a hug. So here it is, your Full House hug. Come on, bring it in. There we go. The biggest hugger I ever knew was Bob Saget. He hugged everyone, and if you were going through a tough time, Bob was there for you. When my brother Danny took his own life in 2021, Bob was the first person who called me and left a voicemail. It was an audio hug. I loved Bob, and he loved me too, and I'd like to close this episode by playing that voicemail message that Bob left for me. Maybe someday you can pass along the same kind of compassion to someone you love. And that's our show, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us.
I know it's not the time to call, but I'm right here, 24/7 right now, right here. I love you, Dave. I'm so sorry, Dave. I loved him. I'm so sorry. So I'm here. I'm here 24/7. Just call me anytime. Doesn't have to be now. It could be a week. Whenever. I can just talk to you and listen. I love you so much.